Now, ultimately, if you have a classification plan and you have a departmental structure, it actually ultimately also helps out in the discovery process. Records departments still manage the e-discovery process, but now departments can participate in the e-discovery process by using the design that's been given to them, keeping the subject matter together. Now, as an example, since we've been using OpenText, so if you, for some reason, had an e-discovery on OpenText, it is now easier for the end user to identify the records that pertain to OpenText because technically they have a cabinet full for OpenText. But then at the same time, those can be handled by the functional plan, classification plan by records management, because they're listed and classified into the records management classification plan as well. Bottom line then, the e-discovery becomes more efficient both in cost, time, and a thorough, complete gathering of all the records that have been requested, and you don't have to keep doing the process over and over. So that's just basically trying to bring a functional plan into a departmental plan and working together for the best of both worlds. So I'm going to hand it back over to Kelly.
Great, thank you, Tammy. At this time, I'd like to introduce our second speaker for today. Tara Combs is a Principal Solutions Consultant with OpenText. Ms. Combs has spent nearly 2 decades working with content management solutions. Prior to OpenText, Tara worked at DWC Consulting, selling turnkey systems to associations. She also managed computer networks for several law firms and worked as a government contractor at the Department of Justice and the Joint Chiefs of Staff, where she implemented a document management records management system. Ms. Combs is a member of ARMA and AIM and has a degree in computer information systems and marketing management from Eastern Kentucky University. Tara, please go ahead.
Thank you, Kelly. So today what we're going to be taking a look at is our OpenText records management application, and we're going to cover 5 different areas. First, creating the file plan. Secondly, creating our record series identifiers, commonly called RSIs, so how long those records are going to be retained. Dispositioning those records, how we declare a record in our systems, and then some things about e-discovery. So what we're going to take a look at first is our file plan, and I have an example here of a sample for a corporate file plan. And so you've noticed that I've kind of broken it up logically by administrative records, bank records, business records, etc. But when we click on one of these categories, we'll see that that actually is further broken up. So we can set up a hierarchical file plan or a departmental file plan or an enterprise file plan for an organization. But one of the nice things about the system is when I click on one of these classifications or pieces of my file plan, we'll actually be able to see all those records in the system that have been classified with that associated piece of the file plan. We also give you a visual cue that something has been declared a record and is marked official. You see the little circle with the red check mark, and that allows the users to know that something is an official record and can only be either viewed or copied at that point. When we're declaring or creating our file plan, there's some specific information that we're capturing about each piece of our file plan. So things like the file number, the date it was created, the status date, whether it's part of our vital records program or not. So if our building were to burn down, what do we have to restore for continuity of business? The storage medium for these records. So OpenText RM actually manages both electronic and physical records in our repository. So you could have just strictly electronic or strictly physical or a mixture of both. And then if these records are part of our vital records program, how often are those records going to be reviewed? So you can define that to be on a monthly basis, a semi-annually, quarterly, annual basis, however you need it to be reviewed. And the final thing that we want to take a look at here is how long records that are classified with this piece of the file plan are going to be retained in the system. So what is the associated RSI for this piece of the file plan? And in this example, we can see that it's 1 month. So things that are being declared temporary email records are going to be retained in our repository for 1 month before they're being dispositioned. So that's kind of how we set our file plan up. So the second piece of this then would be creating our RSIs. All of our records components are created underneath three categories, so either the classifications workspace where we create our file plan, the records management workspace where we're going to create our RSIs and our disposition searches, and then if you're managing physical records, we have a third workspace for our physical objects. So we're going to move into the records management workspace now, and we're going to take a look at our RSIs and our dispositions. So when we look at our RSI again, we can see that I have quite a few out here in my demonstration system, and typically they're named something very simple, and then they typically have a title. But what we really care about here is the schedules that are associated with these records. So in this case, we've already created a schedule, so we're just going to click View Schedule and kind of look at an overview of it, and then we're going to edit that schedule and I'll show you the wizard process that you can walk through to define that schedule. So the first thing that we're going to take a look at is those objects that we're managing as records within the system. So we're doing classified objects, but we also have the ability to place the file plan as well as RSIs under disposition control. The stage that these records are in, the rule type, so is it going to be based on a calculated date or event or a combination, and the rule code, so it's going to be based on time. From the date that the object was declared a record, we're going to retain it for 1 month, and then we're going to delete the electronic format of this record. So what we're going to go ahead and do now is to actually edit this RSI. So you can see, again, we have the choice here to choose what type of objects that we're going to be applying this RSI to, so either classified objects that have been declared records or RM classifications, the stage that these records are going to be in, and then our rule type. And so we have various rule types here. First being, again, the calculated date where it's, 1 month since it was declared a record, or in cases like contracts, typically contracts, the clock doesn't start until the status has been updated to say the contract is terminated, and then I'm going to keep it for a period of 7 to 10 years. So it could be, 7 years or 10 years since it last changed its status, and that status update would have been terminated, being marked terminated. Or it could be a calendar calculation. So a lot of financial records are kept from the point they're declared a record through the end of the fiscal year or financial year, and then a period after that. So we give you the ability to define your fiscal year, whether that's December 31st or June 30th. You can define whatever you need it to be in our system. Or maybe it's event-based, so it can be destroyed when an object has been superseded or deemed obsolete. Or a fixed date, so I need to keep everything for 50 years, and so it's going to be destroyed in 2050. And then finally, permanent records, so things that are going to be kept forever in our system. And then our associated rule code. And the information that we're looking at here is really what you're defining when you set up your records management system. So in my case, I have an event rule, a time rule, or a combination of a time event. And that would be something like the event being declared, a contract status being declared terminated, and then a period of time after that for it to be retained. You also have the ability to add a comment on the rule. Once I've defined this information, I'm going to go ahead and define what date that I'm going to use here to start my calculation on. And we give you, again, a variety of factors here. So the first one being what we call a category date. And we allow you in our system to create custom metadata that we call categories and attributes. And so you can define a date field as a custom metadata field, and you can use that custom metadata field as a calculation for calculating your retention period. So it gives organizations a lot of flexibility in how they're defining the start date for that records calculation or retention calculation. Or it could be the date that the object was created, or the last version date, or the last time it was modified, or the date it was declared a record or checked out, or the status field was updated, or the last date that a version was created. And then for physical objects, again, it could be the physical container to and from date. Once I've